About 3 years ago, I moved to London. I was looking for a flatmate, but had no luck. I turned to my friend Marcus. After a week or two, Marcus and I moved in together. After we moved in, he put some of his stuff in storage so that he could make room for me in his flat. When I moved in, everything was fine and well. Fast forward about a year, I went to get some stuff out of the storage locker that Marcus put his stuff in. As I opened the door, an absolutely rank scent hit me like a bat. I switched the light on and saw a couple of old boxes and a couch. I was looking for the source of the smell, but I couldn't find it. I grabbed what I came for and left before I could vomit. Now, fast forward to about a month ago. I went back to the storage unit to get something else, and the smell was even worse than before. I had to hold my nose as I walked into the storage unit. I saw an open box, and I decided to look into it. I found stuffed animals, like dead animals that were stuffed. I looked into the box under that one, and I found rotting animals. I was completely disgusted, so I went to Marcus to confront him. As I walked into the flat, I shouted, "Marcus, you sick fuck! Why are there dead animals in our storage locker?" He came out of his room and sat me down on the couch. He told me that he wanted to be completely honest with me, and he told me that he was into necrophilia. Let's just say that I've now recently moved back in with my parents. Around 6 years ago, I worked in a small convenience store in a pretty quiet neighborhood. I was around 18 at the time, maybe a little older, and all of the staff members were female. With it being such a small store, we literally had 5 staff members who rotated shifts. I remember that when this incident took place, the manager had decided to take sick leave, and that left little old me to run the store as I had been working there the longest. Our tiny little shop opened at 5 in the morning, and being the good sport that I am, I decided that I would work the early shifts because the other members of the staff were a little nervous with their lack of training on opening, and the fact that it being the middle of winter, it was actually a little unnerving opening a store completely on your own while so dark and evidently quiet. This one morning I opened the shutters at around 4:30 a.m. I turned on the crappy little heater as I made my way out to the back to make myself a coffee, then went to the front of the store where our newspapers were sitting waiting to be put on the shelves. I got the papers out and headed outside for a cigarette before opening. The few feet of snow added to the eeriness of this morning. Around 6 a.m. every morning, we would get a steady flow of builders and workmen coming in to buy a few Kit Kats and Red Bulls. Knowing them all quite well, I often took some form of comfort from knowing that if anything went wrong, I had a lot of big men heading in to save the day. This morning, 6 a.m. came and went, and I had quite literally not had a single customer. I bet the snow is too bad to work. I flicked through the magazines and drank too much coffee just to keep occupied. At around 6:30 a.m., I popped into the kitchen to turn on the kettle, and I hear someone come in and cough at the counter. I make my way from the back and see a tall, lanky, intoxicated man standing staring at the cigarettes. I apologize for the delay and ask him what I can help with. I'm horrible. I was taken back a little bit by what this man had said, and repeat myself and ask what I can help with. I need you to punch me in the face. I'm a terrible man. I don't know why I did it. I don't know. At this point, I was borderline shitting bricks. I know that if this man wants to hurt me, there is literally fuck all I can do. I'm tiny in comparison. I try and play it off as a joke and say something along the lines of, "Don't be crazy, don't go punching people har to har." The man is not amused by me. For the first time, he looks at me, leans over the counter, and starts slurring disgusting things that he wants to do to me. "What if I fucked you so hard you couldn't breathe anymore? What if I made you bleed? I'm going to make you gag on my cock for being a slut. I need you to punch me." My heart has stopped. We had no panic buttons, and the only phone I had was just out of reach, but even if I had gotten it, there was literally nowhere to lock myself in while I waited for help. I was frozen. I just stared at this man blankly until I heard, "What the fuck did you just say?" And a loud crack as I watched my bleedy raper friend's jaw was no longer in line with his face. Apparently, when I was making my coffee, 2 customers had came in. Lanky Butt Nugget and one of my faithful builders was there, disappointed no one informed him it was a snow day. My builder pal wrestled our lovely friend out of the store, where he managed to pretty swiftly disappear considering the amount of snow. That morning, I made my builder friend a cup of tea and didn't charge him for his purchases as a massive thank you for what he did. God knows what may have happened. I met Abby on the first day of 2nd grade. I saw her snapping her fingers on the bus seat next to mine. I couldn't snap my fingers, so I was intrigued, and I sat with her so she could teach me. To this day, I can still only snap my fingers on the hand she taught me. Our friendship was never like the ones they show in movies. Abby had a pretty hard life and eventually fell in with the wrong crowd. She was into drugs, alcohol, and parties, while I was into books, studying, and animals. Still, I felt it was my job to save her from it. She was my best friend. The summer before senior year, I was 17 and feeling rebellious. I'd stay more often at Abby's house, where her mom would let us drink in a more safe environment. But then Abby met a guy and started dating him, Ryan. He creeped me out. He was about 5 years our senior and just off. One day, Abby suggested that we go meet up with Ryan and his friend, Kyle. It turned out that Kyle was the local drug dealer. I wasn't overly comfortable with this, but I wanted to impress Abby and definitely didn't want to leave her alone with them. They started smoking pot, and eventually I joined in. The hot air, combined with the alcohol we'd already consumed, made me feel sick. Abby took me outside to cool off, and I laid down on the lawn. I will admit it, I am a total lightweight. Pretty soon, the guys came out to check on us. I could hear them laughing and saying something, but honestly in that moment I didn't care. Ryan took us home, and the next morning, Abby had told me that my leggings had been sheared and the guys had been talking about the show I had put on for them. For a while, I refused to be around Ryan or Kyle. They were weird, I didn't like them, and they made me feel super uncomfortable. But I was young and dumb and going through some tough shit. When Abby suggested I come around again, even though Ryan was there, I went anyway. Right after I got there, Ryan starts talking about how much Kyle liked me. Not wanting to be rude, I said that was flattering, but I wasn't interested. Abby suggested, to cheer me up, that we go to Ryan's house and have some drinks. And at this point, even Abby's mom didn't like Ryan being around. I should have known it was a red flag if even she didn't like him. Abby said they'd have a cute guy come over for me, so I was placated. We get there, start drinking, and Ryan said Kyle was going to come over for a moment to liven up the party. I pulled Abby aside and told her how uncomfortable I was with that, but she assured me that he wouldn't stick around long and that my guy would be there soon. Kyle arrives, and I'm already smashed. They start smoking, and I couldn't stand the smell. So I tell Abby I'm lying down for a bit and to come and get me when my guy gets there. As I said, I was drunk. I don't hold my alcohol well and barely drink to this day. The next thing I remember, I'm waking up naked in bed, and Kyle is kneeling over me with his dick in his hand trying to get it hard. I don't know why, but at that moment, I laughed. I guess I just didn't know how to process the information, or perhaps the irony of the situation just got to me. I was depressed that summer due to the fact that I was coming to terms with being sexually abused as a child, and it's ironic that in trying to get over it, it was happening again. My mind works in weird ways. Kyle sits back on his haunches, bewildered, and I scurry out of the room to go find Abby and tell her what had happened. Abby and Ryan were right outside the door and had heard me giggle. As soon as I start freaking out to Abby, Ryan starts berating me for laughing at Kyle. I couldn't explain why I'd done it, and I don't even have a rational reason now. Both Abby and Ryan said that after I had laid down for a while, I'd come back in and started making passes at Kyle, so we'd gone back to the room. Being naive and 17, I believed Abby. I apologized to Kyle, who was now irate, and told him I just wasn't comfortable. I made Abby take me home, and I quit hanging out with them. Something about that situation just didn't sit right with me. That fall, when school started, a mutual friend came up to me, and what she told me will haunt me for the rest of my life. The first time I had met Kyle, and he had seen the show I put on, he told Ryan and Abby that if they could get me to sleep with him, he would give them free drugs. When Abby realized I wouldn't sleep with Kyle on my own free will, she decided to get me drunk enough not to know better. I had known her for over a decade, and she was my best friend. When I was 12, I had some very bad self-esteem issues, anxiety and depression, as well as coming to terms with my sexuality. I'm bisexual. I was homeschooled and very antisocial. So, when I finally made friends, it didn't matter that they were into drugs, alcohol, and most especially self-harm. Almost every kid I knew was cutting, as was I. So basically, I wasn't the most stable person. My best friend at the time had convinced me to go on a website called Gifyo, aka the home of many underage, low self-esteem girls and far too many pedophiles with fake names and pictures. I knew it was a bad site, but I didn't care. So over the year of me being active on the website, I encountered quite a few hot 15-year-old girls looking to be friends, but always ignored them. One night, after lots of drinking and sneaking out, my boyfriend at the time had just cheated on me with my friend. I was feeling out of it, lonely and very insecure, and was left alone with many self-depreciating thoughts. I got a message from two men at the same time. Both sent the same "hey" with a smiley face, but one guy's picture was him, shirtless, six-pack flexed in his bathroom mirror. The other guy just had a picture of my favorite anime character. I replied to both and continued to chat. Shirtless guy asked for my nudes, and I politely declined. Well, I can't lie, I'm disappointed. Let me know if you change your mind. Night. Whatever, weirdo. Never talked to shirtless guy again. However, I did continue to talk to Mr. Anime. He's cool, nerdy, polite, into the same books and shows as me. Also roleplays anime characters online too, which is awesome. Plus, every message he sent was ended in a compliment of how perfect I am. I'm blushing. Then I ask his age. He's 24. I'm 13 at this point. Red flags are raised, but I was so desperate and lonely I continued. After a night of talking, he convinces me to send naked pictures. I do, and I never had my face in them or anything identifiable, so I felt safe. After we both finished doing what we were doing, he asked for a picture of just my face. Now, something inside me again told me not to, but I did. Then the stereotypical KIK, kick, ? So I gave him mine. We switched from Gifyo's god-awful messaging system to Kik's. Yay. Then he sends me his picture. The first picture I had ever seen of him. He's extremely skinny, ghostly pale, very thick glasses, bald patches that he tried to cover with longish, deep black hair. So, your stereotypical pedophile. After he sent me the picture, I snapped out of my shitty mental state for just long enough to get nervous. I guess after seeing his face, I realized this was all real. A real adult male had pictures of my naked body, and there was nothing I could do to take it back. He bids me good night, and I him. The next morning, I had literally about 50 messages from him. Most were paragraphs long about how beautiful I am and how my color of eyes, hair, and lips were his favorite, and how no other girl compared to me. I asked him to calm down, and he apologized. Later that night, idiotically more nudes are sent, and during dirty talk he starts asking me to call him Master, and to refer to myself as Little Slave. Now, I'm a kinky lady, and I've been really into BDSM and those kind of dynamics since I was very young. I'm not afraid to admit it, but this made me start to feel afraid of him. Then he starts telling me that I am his sexy little slave, and anytime, no matter what, if he wanted naked pictures, that they will have my face in them if he wants, and threatening me if I don't. Then, praise Jesus, it finally clicked. What type of 23-year-old man would message a 13-year-old girl he didn't know to begin with? And what type of 23-year-old man would ask for naked pictures of a 13-year-old after a casual night of only discussing books and TV shows? Or hell, even in general, what type of 23-year-old man calls a 13-year-old girl his little slave? Definitely not a good one. I panicked this time and stopped messaging for 10 minutes, of which he began to lose his shit, telling me to get my little ass back. Then came back on Kik and lied, telling them that my dad came into the room and saw what I was doing, read our messages and grounded me, and is taking away my phone. Mr. Anime got mad, called me a liar, then went offline. I immediately blocked him, and all was okay after that. Well, for a few days at least. Then I get a message on Kik. Some person with gibberish for a username was messaging me. He starts calling me by my real name, saying it was Mr. Anime, telling me he loves me. Now, sure that's creepy, but what scared me the most is that I never told him my real name. Never. Anyone I ever talked to online got a fake name that was different every time. I never gave him any personal information. I started crying and shaking terribly, reading the messages he's sending almost back to back, and I will never forget this one. Look, I'm sorry I called you a liar. I know I moved too fast, but I was excited, and you led me on. I love you. Don't you love me too? I know home life is bad for you, and I know your roommate's son keeps picking on you, and that you feel you have to cut yourself so much. But listen to me. I can take you away from that. I can bring you to my home, and we can have a better life. I know you're the one for me because you didn't reply to shirtless guy. You picked me. Please, marry me. Reading this made me throw up, and recalling this makes me shake again because, as I said, I've never told him any of this. I never told him my real name. I made sure that any pictures I sent him, you couldn't see any cuts or scars or anything in the background. I never said anything about my roommate's son. I told him nothing about me. I threw up again, then blocked that account. He made about 10 more accounts, each message getting further and further from sanity, starting with, I love you, and ending with things like, I'll fucking break in your window and rape you at night. I'll gut you and hide your body in the woods. Then I replied, I apologized for lying and begged and pleaded for hours for him to leave me alone. The last messages we ever had went like this. Please, just leave me alone. You're scaring me. Oh, I never meant to scare you. I'll leave you alone then. Thank you. I'll be seeing you. I deleted most social media after that, and went basically off the radar as far as the internet goes for about a year. I haven't knowingly heard from him again. Years later, I told my parents everything. I wasn't going to post this, but I read so many stories about internet encounters going wrong, and just wanted to say that no matter how safe you feel as a young boy or girl on the internet, whether you put yourself out there or not, there will always be someone who will try their hardest to hurt you in some way. Always. Sometimes, no isn't enough. Sometimes, it still happens. If this has happened to you or is happening, tell somebody. I got lucky so far, but almost everyone else who experienced this doesn't, and know that this isn't your fault. You may think, God, I'm so stupid, but you weren't, and are not. Naive maybe, but don't blame yourself for this. You didn't try to hurt someone. They did. They are the bad guy here, not you. About 3 years ago, I moved to London. I was looking for a flatmate, but had no luck. I turned to my friend Marcus. After a week or two, Marcus and I moved in together. After we moved in, he put some of his stuff in storage so that he could make room for me in his flat. When I moved in, everything was fine and well. Fast forward about a year, I went to get some stuff out of the storage locker that Marcus put his stuff in. As I opened the door, and absolutely honest with me, and he told me that he was into necrophilia. Let's just say that I've now recently moved back in with my parents. Around 6 years ago, I worked in a small convenience store in a pretty quiet neighborhood. I was around 18 at the time, maybe a little older, and all of the staff members were female. With it being such a small store, the rank scent hit me like a bat. I switched the light on and saw a couple of old boxes and a couch. I was looking for the source of the smell, but I couldn't find it. I grabbed what I came for and left before I could vomit. Now, fast forward to about a month ago. I went back to the storage unit to get something else, and the smell was even worse than before. I had to hold my nose as I walked into the storage unit. I saw an open box, and I decided to look into it. I found stuffed animals, like dead animals that were stuffed. I looked into the box under that one, and I found rotting animals. I was completely disgusted, so I went to Marcus to confront him. As I walked into the flat, I shouted, "Marcus, you sick fuck! Why are there dead animals in our storage locker?" He came out of his room and sat me down on the couch. He told me that he wanted to be complete. We literally had 5 staff members who rotated shifts. I remember that when this incident took place, the manager had decided to take sick leave, and that left little old me to run the store as I had been working there the longest. Our tiny little shop opened at 5 in the morning, and being the good sport that I am, I decided that I would work the early shifts because the other members of the staff were a little nervous with their lack of training on opening, and the fact that it being the middle of winter, it was actually a little unnerving opening a store completely on your own